You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow. I'm also the Executive Director here at the Audio Information Network of Colorado. We're so pleased to be bringing this podcast to you. This month, our topic is employment. And today, we have a guest with a wealth of information about looking for a job and technology to help you as you're looking for a job. He's really specialized in assisting individuals with vision loss with finding a job. So when we come back, we will be talking with Billy Parker. He is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at NSITE, and he's responsible for developing key strategic business partnerships to advance their mission, which is helping individuals find employment and as well as training. He has over 20 years experience in the area of training, recruitment, business development, and disability employment. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and when we come back, we will talk to Billy.
This is Navigating Life with Vision Loss. If you have a question, please visit us at aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Make sure to subscribe to all of our podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's your host, Kim Wardlow.
Hello, Billy. Thanks so much for joining us again. I know a couple months ago you did an interview with Penn on AfterSight.
I did. Thanks for having me. That was a great time with Penn, and I'm excited to be on the show with you, Kim. So thanks for the opportunity.
Sure. Well, I always like to start with just asking you if you want to tell folks a little bit about yourself, if you have any other interesting hobbies. I know your path to getting to the position you're in now was rather interesting. So anything you'd like to share?
Sure. Thanks. Well, just a little bit about myself. I'm originally from North Carolina, so that's where this accent comes from, in case you're curious. I've been in the D.C. area for a little over 20 years. Was supposed to be maybe a year, but met my wife here and settled in. Originally, what brought me to D.C. was politics. So I worked in politics for a number of years. And the last job I had in politics was with the Bush administration as the chief of staff with the Office of Disability Employment Policy. And that's what got me into disability employment policy. And so after finishing that, I had done a little work with National Industries for the Blind and was really excited about what they were doing and their innovation, and just pivoted completely out of politics and into working with disability employment support, and particularly with the blindness community. And then a few years ago, NSITE, was created as an extension of NIB to really address advancing training programs and really focusing on employment across the nation and actually internationally. So that's what brings me to today. So super excited to share some resources and any kind of tips that can help individuals as they're looking to find a job and advance their career.
Well, thank you so much. I did not realize NSITE was international. I knew it was national, but not international. So that's great. And I'm very excited to have you share your experience and your knowledge with us today. So we have folks at different stages in their careers. Some may be young and doing that traditional, starting their first job, just looking for a career. And others, maybe individuals who have lost their vision mid-career, and now they're trying to re-enter the workforce. And so I just wondered, what resources do you recommend for people? And is it different, or are they the same if you're at the beginning of your career, or if you're partway through and have a fair amount of experience?
Great question, Kim. So yeah, it does differ a bit, but not a lot. Obviously, individuals could lose their vision at any point of their life. So we work with individuals who've been blind since birth, all the way to individuals who, were, midway through their career or advanced in their career and lost their vision and had those skills that were able to transition, but needed just the technology training to get there. It definitely depends. Everyone's different. One thing I've definitely realized over the years, no one is the same, regardless. There's definitely differing, capabilities, and people definitely, transition at their own pace sometimes. And so we work with everyone, I think really in a customized way, because everyone is very different, ranging from, the college student who's looking to get their first job all the way to someone who is retiring and looking to transition into another career, or loses their vision in a career that they need their sight, and now they have to change to something completely. We're really involved across the board, and really take it case by case as they come in and work on an individual basis to help them navigate that.
And then I know NSITE has a wide range of services, including helping training if folks aren't quite there with the skills they need. And maybe do you also help individuals where they love their job and maybe they don't need to change entirely the type of work they're doing, and they'd like to keep the job they have, but now they need to better understand what they need to do in terms of assistive technology. Perhaps their employer needs to understand what they need to do to be able to retain someone that they've already invested in.
Great point, because, obviously that's definitely the path we like to go down. I tell people quickly, don't feel like you need to quit your job. A lot of times these things can transition over. It may take some time, but we can definitely get you there. The one thing I say we do, and we really connect the dots to figuring out how you want to be successful. And so we work with all components. It's really the continuum of employment that we do at NSITE, from working with the individual, but also, and you mentioned it, the business, and make sure they have an understanding of, okay, what they need to do or provide to make sure it's going to be a success for the individual coming into the job. Or if they're currently already in the job, what do they need to be aware of as they transition to make sure that individual needs what they need? And oftentimes it's not even close to what they think it might need to be. There's not a huge cost on it. It's not a major transition in most cases. It's simple things that need to be adjusted and an awareness. But the key is having the open conversation, and the value of really like an NSITE. We can come in and be kind of that connector to be able to talk to the company and have that candid conversation. They might, have some concerns or questions they don't know if they can ask us. And then also doing that with the individual. So as the individual is maybe transitioning or feels like they're not going to be able to do the job they have, it's really important to have an understanding of the technology and resources out there now. And when I started doing this, 13, 14 years ago in this area, specifically in blindness, the technology, wasn't even close to where it is today. And because of the transition in that, we're seeing a lot more opportunities. So, but knowing there are things out there like JAWS and Zoom Jacks, and there are advanced training that you can take to navigate your JAWS to be able to do things that you wouldn't envision being able to do before, and even being able to be efficient on the job. So we make sure those things are addressed and provide that training as well and those resources.
Do you advise individuals with their resumes or filling out online applications? Obviously, NSITE is specifically serving individuals with vision loss, but other very common sites like Indeed or LinkedIn or other types of career boards may not be as accessible. So do you help individuals with navigating other sites and what information they're putting out there in terms of their resume or online applications?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an individual on staff who helps individuals navigate that process when they come in. So determining, the best places they may want to place their resume, updating the resume. We're really excited. We have a partnership with American Printing House, and they have a great free training resources listed and on our website. It's a job seekers toolkit, which is outstanding. It's hosted on NSITE's job board and NSITE website, and that they can have free access to, which provides, self-awareness assessment, evaluation, career exploration, updating your resume, finding employment, interview tips, maintaining employment, all those things. So what we definitely try to do is, we're not experts in all things by any means. And there are a lot of organizations who do things very, very well. NSITE really, what we're trying to do is connect individuals to those resources that already exist and leverage those partnerships. And APH is just one example of that. But when an individual's coming in, this is a great place. When they come in, we point them in this direction and get them going with the APH things that are out there to create that resume. And then when they're ready, and one thing we're finding, Kim, quite a bit, not like, I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know, but it's just a lot of individuals just don't have resumes anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
not standard like it used to be.
It's not. I'll say, can I get your resume? They're like, no, I don't have a resume. I'm like, okay, well, you need the resume. Or they may not even have the LinkedIn profile. So you mentioned LinkedIn. We're going pretty heavy into, because a lot of our training programs are designed for professional careers. We're training recruiters. We're training individuals in cybersecurity, contract management. Well, these are all careers you need to make sure you have a presence on LinkedIn. And with a lot of those programs, it's built in that, as part of that, they receive a LinkedIn. We help you build your LinkedIn profile and help navigate that. And not only that, we are working with individuals to help navigate LinkedIn itself on how do I go look for a job. And you're right, accessibility is not great with it, but there's some tips of how you navigate this. And one of our staff members has actually recently did a training session on this for a couple organizations on how you navigate LinkedIn and post your resume on this. So we definitely provide that advice for how to do that, because you have to be seen. And we do get questions quite a bit on, what do I include on a resume or my LinkedIn? Do I share that I'm, visually impaired? Do I not share that?
Right.
Those are things we help navigate, because they're tough questions as you're looking to get employed.
Right. And do you do anything similar for Indeed?
We don't do as much with Indeed, to be quite honest with you. We focus more on the LinkedIn area, because really that's where we see a lot of the professional profiles going out, and then you can look and connect with individuals. So Indeed's a great place to post a resume, but it doesn't have that connection to other professionals that we traditionally see. We actually have our very own job board called NSITE Connect that we designed, because what we were finding, individuals got lost in the big sites like Indeed. They're great sites, and they definitely should put their resume there. But with NSITE Connect, it's focused specifically on individuals who are blind. I believe we're the only job board designed for individuals who are blind specifically, and where we make sure with companies are posting jobs, they're accessible jobs. We're verifying they're definitely hiring for these positions. It's not just posting a bunch of jobs and there's a lot of resumes. We're really connecting the dots to make sure they're jobs that, individuals might match up well with. They are going to be accessible, and we address those questions before going in. So we've had a lot of success with that. And then because the employer already knows they're going to be working with us and coordinate with the individual going in to address any questions or concerns they might have on navigating, transitioning to their job.
So you mentioned one of the big questions, and certainly, as you said, if a person is working with NSITE and that employer is working with NSITE, they know that they're working with individuals with vision loss. But outside of that, what do you advise individuals when they're in the application process, the interview process, about disclosing their vision loss? or other disabilities?
Right. It's a very tricky question, Kim. It's tough to say because, I would love to say, hey, you need to be upfront with it. They're not going to hold it against you. You'll be fine. But that's not always going to be the case. And
right.
So generally what I would say is it doesn't need to be listed on your resume. I mean, is that part of who you are and your skills? Maybe it is because maybe you have something tied to that. But if not, just, your resume is your resume. As you go through the interview process, I think that point, from our experience and our recommendation, it's probably best to disclose it, but with and this is how I would do my job. I think, a lot of times it's if you kind of share that you're blind and visually impaired, but there's no follow on how you would do your job, you can't assume they're going to understand how you would do your job because most of the time you don't. And they panic and they just say, well, I'm not going to know how to help them. So maybe we just don't go down that path. So we say, yes, you need to tell them, but you need to be open with them. And there's this system called JAWS. And this is how I would, this is how I navigate the screen. And this is what I do. And these are things that are accessible. And by the way, here's some additional resources. If you have that conversation, most of the time, it addresses it up front and you're able to navigate it. At some point, it is going to come out. And if even after you're hired, and, we work with a lot of individuals who, when they interview, they are in a position they can kind of hide it. And you wouldn't know, like a lot of individuals, you don't know they're legally blind. And they are, but at some point when you're on the job, your job may suffer because you're not, sharing that. You may need the bigger monitor. You need to be able to ask for the larger monitor, So at some point you're going to need to address it. So it's a hard question. It's no, real answer to that other than try to. It's kind of a case by case, but I think you need to be prepared to be able to demonstrate the resources available and how you're going to do your job when you do disclose that. Right.
And definitely at some point you do want to have that conversation, because if you accept the job and you're on the job and have not had that discussion, you actually might be hurting yourself if you cannot do your job as efficiently or properly as you would if you had the assistive technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to just assume you're not good at your job. And that's not the case. It's you just need the proper resources to do your job. And eventually it's just not going to work out anyway. So it's better to be upfront with that. And then sometimes it absolutely helps to have an NSITE or whoever that can also talk to the company and support, what they need if they have questions of navigating that, because we have years of experience of doing that. We can share best practices of other companies and resources, and we have all that available. And those relationships, like recently we've been working with Bristol Myers Squibb on, we do a sourcing training program, and then they do an on-the-job experience with Bristol Myers Squibb. Well, they've been great at saying, okay, well, what do we need to do and make sure our systems need to have? We reviewed them beforehand to make sure they were accessible, and everything has worked very smoothly. But we had to do some stuff up front to make sure that was going to happen. And after doing that, it's been a smooth process.
That's great. Well, and I was wondering if different types of companies, different types of jobs may have different assistive technology requirements. I mean, there's JAWS and some of the basic things that folks who are used to using assistive technology may be familiar with. But are you finding as you work with different corporations that there are different types of assistive technology or assistive programs that are needed that vary from industry to industry?
Generally, I know there are various types of screen readers out there. We tend to work mostly with JAWS in our training. We do some advanced training with that called Promote, Professional Mastery of Office Technology for Employment. It's a mouthful, so we just go call Promote. But it was designed for really that, because what we were finding quite a bit, individuals were getting hired on the jobs, and they were proficient in using their assistive technology, but, proficient and being effective are two different things. And, on the job. So we actually customize a training program that's 4 weeks that teaches you how to use, really designed for Microsoft. But focus primarily on JAWS, the key commands on how to do it. Since it's the largest screen reader being used,
right.
And customize that in the Microsoft programs. So when they do go on, they know the key commands and the shortcut keys, so they're proficient and can hit the ground running. And that's been very effective. And we've worked with all kinds of individuals who were very good at their jobs. But what we found, they obviously were having to work 3-4 times harder than anyone else, and no one knew that. They were doing great, but by teaching the shortcut keys and key commands, they were able to cut their time in half and doing the work they were doing before. So it's those types of things we're working on developing. And that's coordination with businesses by looking at their systems and saying, hey, Kim, what are you using? What do we need to be aware of that we can maybe even customize to make sure their key commands or things we need to teach, we can share that. So we're working with different organizations and companies to figure that out. But it's just starting with navigating Microsoft effectively, because that's what most companies use. It works. And it really, they're able to do their PowerPoint. They know how to navigate their email. They're doing Excel spreadsheets. They're doing pivot tables. I mean, I can't do a pivot table.
I was going to say, I can't do a pivot table either.
And they need that. We have individuals doing contract management. So they're dealing with large volumes of numbers and figures and, cells with the Department of Defense. And they have to navigate Excel at a high level. And we've really kind of developed a training they can do that. So, that's kind of one of the ways we really tried to address making sure that everything was in place to level the playing field and the skills they would need to do to be effective on the job.
Well, that's great advice, to seek out some of that additional higher level training, even if you have, say, basic Microsoft skills, that having that extra training may save you time and give you some competitive advantage as well.
Absolutely. It really does. And until again, most people, you talk to most people, they say, hey, I'm pretty proficient at what I do. Well, when you kind of pull back the layers, everyone can use more computer training, for sure. But, to go in with those type of systems, it really gives you a competitive advantage if you have that additional training.
And once a person is offered a job, whose responsibility is it to get the tech in place, or is that a partnership, or does the company, they need to figure that out, or in working with the person and the specific job situation to figure out what technology is in place? I know frequently people walk into a new job and the assistive technology they need isn't already there, so it takes longer to get up and going and being productive in their work.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kim, because I've seen that so many times. And it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier on. You need to be open about, what you would need because of your, being blind and visually impaired. You're like, what resources do you need? Well, that speaks to that, because you want that there when you arrive. So we can, NSITE's definitely here to work with companies because they don't know what to purchase. We can give some guidance. What we also do that's very effective is we'll do an assessment with the individual to kind of get a guide for what they need. Because quite often I realize individuals might not really know what they need, or they might not even be aware of some new technology out there that can make things a lot easier than what they are currently using. Or, we'll do an evaluation, realize, hey, I know you're using magnification, but you're using it at a very high level. You might want to consider, transitioning to fusion or another type of technology and what that will look like. So we do that with the individual, but at the same time with the company, to kind of go back to your original question, we can work directly with the company, or if the individual wants to advise on what they need, if it's just, if they've got a job and they've received the offer, we definitely, work with them to make sure they, have an understanding of what they would need technology wise, and they ask for it in advance because a lot of times it's not overly complicated, but you do need to have it in advance. And the last thing they want to do is get there and be sitting at a desk and not be able to do their job because the proper technology is not there.
Right.
That's the last thing we want to have happen. So it's that communication piece, right? It's like making sure everyone's on the same page and is coordinating with, the right people, with the IT team, with the company, and all those pieces that come into play to make sure everything's going to go smoothly. Again, that's where we come in other organizations, but with NSITE is one of the big things we want to make sure happens, that we don't want to see the individual get on the job and it not work out because the final things were taken care of. It drives me crazy, Kim. I've seen it happen a lot over the years where, all the work goes in to get the individual the job. And once they get the job, everyone kind of applauds and go, okay, we got them in. This is awesome. And they walk away. And 2 months later, you hear the individual's no longer working there. And you kind of pull back the layers and you figure, well, the technology wasn't there they needed, or we should have looked at the systems in advance, or it's all these things that could have been addressed up front and it would have worked, it would have been effective, but that wasn't done. So you get so close to the end, but you don't finish it. And it's never really finished. We tell individuals when they work with NSITE, you're kind of stuck with us as long as you want to work with us. Once you got your job, I'm sure you're going to be looking for career advancement. Maybe you want to transition jobs eventually. Whatever you need, we're here for you. So a lot of people we work with, I've worked with people from NIB, transition over to NSITE. They're kind of part of our family at that point, and we're here as long as they need us.
And then do you ever bring in the vocational rehabilitation from that person's state? Because I know sometimes if a person's working with Voc Rehab, then Voc Rehab can help pay for some of the assistive technology that's needed in the workplace.
Absolutely. It's a team effort for sure. So, earlier I mentioned the partnership piece. VR, I consider one of the most important partners in this whole process. And boy, they have a tough job. So they have a lot to navigate and a lot to take on. So that's where, we kind of come in as an additional resource to be able to support what they're doing, as well as kind of maybe even kind of take the hand off from them. Because at some point, sometimes they've taken it as far as they could go. And then they can hand it over to us to kind of finish or take it over the finish line. But we do a lot of coordination with them. They support a number of our training programs. So a lot of our training programs are referrals from VR. We're approved in, I believe, 36 or 37 different states as a vendor. So, if an individual wants to take one of our trainings, we work with VR to get it, paid for. And then we'll continue through the process. And it's great because it's collaborative. And at the end of the day, it's great when the individual gets the job and you see the whole team is around it. It's the VR piece, it's the NSITE piece, it's APH, it's everyone that was involved in the process, because that's all what we're here to do. But VR is a very important piece of that puzzle, and we work very close with them.
Billy, what kind of jobs do you see being available for people with vision loss? And how do you work with companies maybe to expand what people may traditionally think would be limitations of what a person can do? Are you seeing trends in the types of jobs, the individuals you're working with, the types of jobs that they're interested in and looking for?
I am, and it's a great trend because it's more professional level type of careers and jobs. From again, 10, 12 years ago, whatever, with technology, there's some limitations, and there were jobs, and they're that were out there, service related, which are great, but now I'm seeing a big push for individuals who are coming out that are looking for more career-based opportunities. IT is probably the largest one I am seeing right now. Anything in the IT industry is a big push. And we run multiple training programs in IT all the way up to CCNA certification, which is pretty advanced in cyber. So with that, kind of the sky's the limit, but that's where it seems to be trending. We're also doing the recruitment program, which is sourcing, because we're trying to put a lot of emphasis also on what can be done remotely. With the transition over the last few years, remote is definitely a possibility. And that's opened up a ton of opportunity. So we're looking a lot in IT and, now recruitment, contract management. But as far as opportunities, it's limitless. I mean, I'm pretty convinced, and I know there are some limitations. Sometimes there's going to be something that's going to be a barrier, but most careers out there can absolutely be done by someone who's blind and visually impaired. It's just going to take additional training or additional support. Obviously, there's some barriers. I get that. But in our mind, there really, no limitations on what we're looking to create. So one thing NSITE really is trying to do, anything that's not out there right now that's needed, we're kind of happy to kind of take on that challenge to develop and build it and roll it out as a program to hopefully create that pipeline for candidates to get that training to move forward. So we're trying to be really innovative, because it could be, the next, thing is around the corner. And we're just trying not to limit ourselves to what they may be.
That's great. Well, and I know you've talked a lot about looking at professional types of careers, which again would help if you're transitioning from maybe receiving disability payments, and so you don't fall off the proverbial cliff,
Right.
And you're able to make that transition off of some of those government benefits into
Absolutely. It has to be, it has to be, and that's what's so important we've seen, Kim, is it has to be a job and a salary range or career path that, it has to be worth taking that leap to get off those benefits. That's very scary. To do that. And so we're trying to make sure there are careers that that's worth taking the risk and making that transition, because the potential is so high.
Well, Billy, any final thoughts or suggestions for our listeners that might be embarking on a job career search? Really, the biggest advice I say, it's up to you as an individual. You have to reach out. The resources are out there. NSITE is just one of them. There are many, many others out there. Use your resources. Go out there. Don't limit yourself. And just kind of build off of that. It's like anything else. When you want to be successful at something, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to be a tough road. But there are resources to support you, and I think that's one of those things I keep running into, where people, they don't know the resources are there, or they aren't familiar with the support they could have that could make them effective at what they, and the potential they could have. So don't limit yourself. No matter what you think you might be able to do, just don't limit yourself. Set your goals high, go for it. The support will be there to get you there. So we'll back you up on that, but a lot depends on you as an individual. So don't hesitate. Again, feel free to reach out to NSITE. It's NSITE.org. I would highly recommend going to NSITE Connect and getting your resume listed there. And we can kind of start the process for supporting you at that point. Well, Billy, thank you so much. As he said, if you want more information about NSITE specifically, go to nsite.org. You can also listen to the podcast of the AfterSITE episode that Penn Street did with Billy Parker, and it's just called Billy Parker NSITE. So check that out, because he goes much more in depth about the different services that NSITE offers. So if you have questions about that, certainly contact them directly, but you can also get a great overview from that podcast. Billy, thank you so much for joining us again on a different program, but still helping to support the work that Audio Information Network of Colorado is doing. I'm so excited about the work you're doing. It's so needed, and I think will be a great benefit to folks.
Great. Thanks, Kim. And thanks for everything you guys are doing and spreading the message for the resources and things that are out there. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you. Well, stay tuned. Next week, we will continue on in our month of talking about employment. I've already given a little promo for AfterSITE, but we also offer BlindSITE, which is about topics regarding mental health, and Blind Level Tech, which of course is all about assistive technology. So listen to those as well. Thank you to everyone who came to our Concert in the Dark. Our fundraiser was such a great event. We appreciate everyone who participated. You're always welcome to make a donation. You can go to aincolorado.org to make a donation to find out about other programs we offer, such as providing white canes, audiobook club, peer support groups. So lots of information there. Again, that's aincolorado.org. This is Kim Wardlow, your host, and we'll be back next week with Navigating Life with Vision Loss.